Provoe.
Welcome back to the Provian Roadmap. So far, we've explored vulnerability, courage, self-compassion, and emotional awareness. Today, we're going to talk about how to integrate vulnerability into your daily life. It's one thing to understand vulnerability, but the power comes from making it a consistent practice. Let's explore how you can show up authentically every day. What does it mean to live vulnerably? You see this question? Many of us would have an idea, but until we pay closer attention to the fine print, until we pay deeper attention to what it really means, living vulnerably means showing up as your authentic self, even when it feels risky. This is a topic I try to shy away from, but it is very, very necessary. Integrating vulnerability into daily life. Let's listen to this educational reference from Gabo Mate on the Jay Shetty podcast, and then we'll get back to this.
Well, it makes absolute sense because vulnerability itself is absolutely essential for growth. So vulnerability, the word itself comes from the Latin word vulnerare, to wound. So vulnerability is our capacity to be wounded. Now, the reality is that as human beings, we're all vulnerable from conception until death. But when we're hurt in childhood and the vulnerability is too painful to bear, we will try and shut down our vulnerability, and for example, by being right. Because if I'm right, then I'm powerful and I can't be assailed anymore, But when we do that, we stop growing. Everything in nature grows only where it's vulnerable. So a crustacean animal like a crab inside a hard shell, it can't grow. It has to molt and make itself very vulnerable to be able to grow. A tree doesn't grow where it's hard and thick, does it? It grows where it's soft and green and vulnerable. So vulnerability is absolutely essential for growth. And for vulnerability, you gotta let go of those defenses, such as being right, that you developed as a child in order to protect yourself from the pain. So that's why we talk about growing pains, because vulnerability is necessary for growth. Without vulnerability, there is no growth.
You see? So it's about being real in your relationships, at work, and within yourself. Instead of hiding behind a mask, you allow your true thoughts and feelings to shine through. Vulnerability becomes a way of being, not just an occasional act. It becomes your go-to default mode. Can you pull that off? How far in to the day in your 16 hours of wakefulness can you be vulnerable? How many percentage of that would require you lying to yourself or lying to someone else, being fake? Can you really be vulnerable? Many people have disqualified themselves from vulnerability to the extent that they had to mortgage their security by joining forces with false symbols of security